Hello there, and welcome to today's webinar about the Open Fund for Music Creators. Open Fund for Organisations. If you are interested in the Open Fund for Music Creators, we did a webinar last week, and you can find that in the videos on our PRS Foundation YouTube homepage. Hello there, and welcome to today's webinar about the Open Fund for Music Creators. I am going to go through some of the main criteria of the fund, what we're looking for and why we ask certain questions, and then I will run through the actual application form and answer some, hopefully answer some questions you may have, and then at the end we would have a little Q&A. Going through the application form is a little dry, but it is important to understand why we ask certain questions and what to look for, what we're looking for in the answer to particular questions. So the Open Fund for Organisations supports new music projects led by promoters, talent development organisations, venues, festivals, curators, large performance groups, and the projects must involve the creation, performance and promotion of new music to enable composers, songwriters, solo artists to develop creatively and professionally. So again, much like our music creators strand, through the Open Fund, we have three main criteria. One is to support the creation, performance and promotion of outstanding new music in any genre. And so in that we are obviously particularly interested in the quality of the music creators you're looking to work with, to enable the UK's most talented music creators to realise their potential. We're interested in how your project will help develop them, and we're committed to supporting UK composers from all backgrounds. And the third is to reach audiences. So you'll be asked to outline how you are reaching an audience, and how that is of benefit to the composer, which we'll talk about when we get to the application form. So what counts as an organisation through this fund would be, as I mentioned, festivals, venues, promoters, large ensembles. So that's an ensemble larger than 12. If you're a smaller ensemble, you should be applying to the music creators strand. And talent development organisations and curators. So we do prioritise funding not-for-profit organisations, but if you are set up as a different kind of organisation, like Limited by Shares, for instance, you can just get in touch with us, and we just like to make sure that the project we are funding is a not-for-profit project and that you do need support and it's for the development of composers. So if you're like a venue that's Limited by Shares, you can still potentially apply. Just need to let us know exactly what you're applying for, so that we're not just supporting, we're not looking to sponsor big events, you know, that sort of thing. We want to be supporting development programs. So as long as that's what you're doing, generally it's fine. But if you are unsure, do get in touch, and you can email us at applications@prsfoundation.com to find out more about that. So the grant scheme is up to £10,000, and we're looking to support either the creation of new music, that includes music creator fees, touring, live performances, programming, commissioning new music by UK-based creators. Part of these projects, we generally want to understand the kind of promo and marketing aspect of what you're doing and how you're going to reach that audience through your program, but we don't want to just fund that. So you can't apply for just promo and marketing. There has to be some form of creation or performance that we're supporting as well. So things that we can't cover would be your core organizational costs, like salary costs and living costs and things like that. And all of your own costs would have to come under what we have an admin cost, and that's different depending on what kind of organization you are. That's in the application form as part of the budget. So generally it's up to 15%, but it can be up to 25% for a festival or a venue, which was brought in during the pandemic, because obviously it's a very tough time for festivals and venues, but it's still in place now. So you can still apply for up to that much. So just check on the budget when you are applying for the grant to make sure you're applying for the correct thing. The deadlines are always advertised on our website, on our deadlines page, but it will also be on the application form when you start and as part of the eligibility quiz. And this is really important. So obviously you need to know when the deadline of the application is, but then also decisions are 10 weeks after the deadline. And so all of your activity would have to start after that date, which again is written on the application form, which we will go through in a moment. So that is generally the broad overview of the organisations fund. We do fund all organisations. It's an all-level fund for all different levels of composer and music creator, and obviously we fund everything from venues, festivals, opera houses, whatever. So it is a broad fund, and I would just encourage anyone who is not sure how to approach the application or what they should be applying for to get in contact with us at info@prsfoundation.com so that we can point you in the right direction and help you out. So now I am going to share my screen with you and run through the application form. And then, as I say, afterwards, we will have a Q&A. So if you have any sort of general questions about the fund, please do pop them in there. If you have any specific questions about your application, then please do email info@prsfoundation.com. So bear with me while I just share my screen. Cool. So when you come to apply to us, if you haven't already applied before, you'll need to create a new application. A new profile on our website, FlexiGrant. You can access FlexiGrant through, when you're looking at the criteria of the Open Fund on our website, there's an Apply Now button that will take you to FlexiGrant. Otherwise, if you look in the top right corner of our website, there's an application login section. If you click on that, that will take you to FlexiGrant. As we are an independent charity and separate to PRS for Music, you need to create a new profile. And if you are a PRS member, your credentials won't work on FlexiGrant. You need to set up a new account with us. So once you've done that, you will find this main dashboard page. And if you go to your application portal section and scroll down, you'll find all of the applications that are open down here. So you can see we have the Open Fund for Organizations, which is open, and here it has the closing date, so you know when the deadline is. And then you just click start there. So usually when you start an application form, and this applies to any application form, you'll have some of the instructions come up of what to do and how to get some guidance notes and back to the criteria of the grant scheme should you want to click start. So now we are on, you can do the tour if you want, but we won't do that today. Now we're on the main page of the application form. So again, you can see there's some further instructions here about what you need to do. And then here is the sections of the application form, which may look quite daunting at this point, but a lot of this is really just drop down menus and simple answers for us and our monitoring and getting information about who we're supporting. The main section of the application is really 4 and 5, I suppose. So we'll get to those. So I wouldn't let this put you off if you're worried about doing forms or anything like that. And the first section is eligibility. So I'll start that. Now, this section is a kind of, it's a quiz really to make sure you are applying for the correct grant scheme in the first instance, and also to make sure you understand some of the criteria, and it prompts you to answer questions where if you answer the question incorrectly, so say here, have you read the guidance? No, I have not. It will tell you you can't apply. The whole application, filling something in and finding out when we give you your if you say you're unsuccessful, that it is ineligible because you've asked for something we can't fund. So this isn't, I do kind of find sometimes people have said yes or given the correct answer, but then written in the application what they said they didn't do, if you see what I mean. So this isn't a trick. It's not something to just find the one that's going to let you get through. Actually do make sure you've read it and understood what you're answering here. So for instance, have you been performing or working in new music for 18 months or more? We need to be funding organizations that have a track record. So if you haven't, then you shouldn't be applying at this stage. So that would be a yes. Do you have a registered home address in the UK? Yes or no? We can only fund UK-based organizations. Is your new music activity based in the UK? And we could, again, only fund activity through our organization strand that is UK-based. So that would be a yes. So with equipment costs, we can allow for some purchase of equipment, but generally we want to be funding the creative process, like the recording, mixing, mastering, and the performance aspect of music. So going on tour, live performances, and that sort of thing. So we don't want to just be funding equipment, but we realize you might need a particular thing to do a new project. So you can have up to 20%. Obviously, if it's more than 20%, then you'll get the no. So do make sure in your budget that it is correct. If you are seeking money for that. Are you seeking funding support for education? We can't fund formal education. So if that's a yes, then you would not be able to go any further. Are you seeking funds for a project that happens before this round's decision date? So this is that key question I mentioned earlier. Later on in the application form, there is an activity section. So none of the activity that you put in that section should be before this date. this is our decision date. We can't fund anything that starts before that date. So do make sure you've made a note of that when you do the application. When it comes to talking about your activity, that it all starts after that date, because it would be ineligible if we're supporting activity that has already started. So we aim to communicate decisions within 10 weeks. It says aim because sometimes we do get a large amount of applications and it might take us a little bit longer to get through them. We're trying to keep it within 10 weeks, and generally it will be on the day it says on the 18th you will hear back, but if not, it might be a few days later after that, but it will be around that date. But just make sure it doesn't start before then. And then the next is, have you applied for the Open Fund for Organisations this calendar year? You can actually only apply once per year. We do this because, again, as I mentioned, we get a lot of applications, and in order to keep it at a manageable level and make sure everybody gets a fair opportunity to apply, you should only be applying once per year. And we do it by our calendar year, January to December. So if you apply in the last round of a year, you would then be able to apply again in the first round of the next year, rather than it being a year from when you applied. And does the project include the creation and/or performance of new music? Obviously, that's kind of a key criteria of what we do. So that would be a yes. And by new music, we mean that the music creator or composer is creating new music as part of this project. And are you seeking cost to manufacture? We can't pay for the manufacture of CDs or vinyl. So that would be a no. And is your application based on PRS Foundation covering 100% of your marketing costs with no new music creation or performance? Again, so if you're doing a record release sort of project and you're coming in and you're asking us to pay just for marketing, it's going to be ineligible. We need to be paying for some of that creation or performance aspect to help develop that music creator that you're working with. So that would be a no. Are the main music creators a member of PRS for Music or in a position to join PRS for Music? Obviously, we are primarily funded by PRS for Music. So the composers or music creators you're looking to work with should be a member of PRS. They should be not yet a member or in a position to join. So if there's a potential for them to have some sort of split royalty thing, they can go down that road. But if you're not sure, you can put not sure, but we would need to find out before it was successful. If the music creator is a member of another collection society, they are currently ineligible for support and would need to get in touch with us in the first instance, and then we can forward them to PRS for Music. So it's quite a rigmarole, but that's fine. And then if they are a member, you can put in their CAE number down here so we know who they are. So that's the quiz, which, yeah, it's a bit long, it's a bit dry, but it just helps to clarify that the project you are asking us to support is actually eligible, and the goal is to make sure that we're not wasting your time with you filling out a big application for no reason. So yeah, do pay attention to that one. So once you've done that, you can move on to your general details, where we obviously want the name of your organization, like to know what you are, what sort of organization you're doing. This is all information that's really for us and just to know who we're funding, like I mentioned before. There's no real limit on how many creators are supported through the project. It could be 1, it can be 100. But when it comes to telling us, we have a fixed amount, but you can just put in however many you're working with on here. And then you can tell us a little bit about the types of creators you intend to support. And then we ask for you to list up to 6. We just want to be able to compare all applications on a kind of level playing field. So listing up to 6 music creators is good. So, there's no point listing hundreds. You can, at this point, it's good for us to know exactly who's getting support from us. And then underneath, we ask you to choose one as a main music creator. So it's good to choose someone who you think really embodies the project, what you're trying to do and who you're trying to support. If you're applying for an open call project, you can use examples of people who have previously gone through the project. So say you've been doing the project for a number of years, but you're doing an open call for this project you're applying for, so you don't know who they are yet. This section you can use people who have previously gone through, so we can look and say, okay, these are previous examples if you have to. Then we just want to know a little bit of information about where you're based and also where the music creator, the main music creator that you're asking us to support, is based as well. And so that's all the same stuff. Then provide a link to the website for the main music creators. If they don't have a main website, that could be their main social media. Ideally, it would be a website, but that's fine. And then a bit more information about whether you've previously applied before, and you can talk about whatever it was that you applied for previously and whether you were successful or not, and that all in there. And then a little bit about how you heard about us and whether you would like our newsletter, which I would say, yes, you should, because that's where you'll be prompted when new applications are opening and closing and things like that. So you've gone through that section. And the next section is the project details. So this is where we start digging into the project that you're asking us to support. So give us the title, just want to know what it is, very quick headline title, and the total project budget of what you're asking us to support. So not just our support, the whole budget, and then how much you're asking us to support for. So obviously it's up to £10,000. There's a budget, an actual budget you have to do later on in the application form. So just make sure that what you put in here does match what you put in the budget at the end of the application form. We'll go through that later on. And then here we have, please select the most appropriate genre. And then appropriate subgenre, which we have a quite high level main genre, which makes it easy for us to assign assessors in general. It's like a starting point. But then we ask for a subgenre, which gives a little bit more information about exactly what they are, which helps us make sure we are sending it to the right person. It's really important because of the way that our assessment process works, because we assess here at PRS Foundation, but then also we have a pool of 500 plus industry professionals and music creators who we pull from to help us assess from all over the UK, all different genres, some industry professionals, some music creators. And by understanding more about the music creator that you're looking to work with, your main music creator, we can make sure that your application is being assessed by someone who is from that world and understands it. So you can be quite specific in your application about the needs and the barriers and why you're doing certain things in your project that benefits that kind of music creator. So it's a really helpful aspect. And if you find that the appropriate genre is not in there, you can email us at applications@prsfoundation.com and we can put it in there, as long as it is just a descriptive genre rather than something you would see in a press release. So it needs to be helpful. Then we ask, oh, sorry, I should also say, if you're doing a project that is across multiple genres and you're finding it hard to think there's not one, there's loads of different genres we're working with here, keep it to the main music creator that we've asked you to choose. Whatever genre that is, that's the genre you should pick for this question, because that's what that person is going to be listening to. You know, those music examples that you'll give us later on in the application form is what they're basing that on. So always stick with the main music creator for that one. Does the project include creating or performing music for film, TV, games, or other media? We like to know kind of if you're doing anything that is specific for those areas. So yeah, if it's something that is for games, film, TV, you can sort of elaborate a bit more on exactly what's going on there and where the end product would end up. And then we ask for a little concise description of your project. So it's like your elevator pitch type thing, you know, it's just a quick way of explaining what the project is. And then the main focus of that application there. Geographical reach, we just want to know what is the reach of the project? You know, is it a local thing? Is it regional, national, international? And if your project does include some aspect of international activity, as mentioned at the start, we can't fund just an international tour through the Open Fund for Organisations. But if you're doing something online, say, and the reach would by definition be international, then you can tick that. But the activity itself should be taking place in the UK. So you've done that one. Now we can move on. So the next section here is about your music, and there is some, again, guidance here at the start about how best to submit that. It should always be a direct link to a track. So not a playlist of things, not a whole album, or not like a whole live video performance. We really want to hear a track, or if you're, say you're doing some sort of sound art piece, which is a long, say hour-long piece, it's good if you can find maybe like a video and have it start at a key point, just so that it's easy for the assessors to get an understanding of what it is exactly you're wanting us to look at. We don't accept anything from like Sendspace or Dropbox or SharePoint, Facebook, Instagram, anything where you have to have a login to use. Advisors would have access to that, or TikTok or something like that. So it has to be like a YouTube or Spotify link that anyone can just go straight to. If it's an unreleased piece of music and you want to keep it hidden, you can do like a hidden SoundCloud or something. You just have to make sure that you give us the password and that it is available for up to 12 weeks after the deadline. It happens many times where people do that and then the track is unavailable when it comes to actually assessing it. So do make sure that you keep it open. So yeah, we asked for one musical example, another musical example, so they can be, it can be a video if you think that that medium is better at telling the story of what you're wanting the artist to do, or it can just be a link to a track. It doesn't really matter either way. And then we ask for a statement from that main music creator, because we want to know, again, as we're an artist first funder, why they want to work on this project, what it means for them and what they're going to get out of it. Not a particularly long statement, just needs to be something from them. And then also their direct contact, should we need to get in touch with them about anything. And it's also important that we know, if the relationship breaks down, the grant is always for the artist. So we want to make sure that the artist is fine. All of our grants are always centered around the artist, the composer, the music creator that you're working with. So we do like to be able to contact them should we need to. And that's all it is for that section. And then we're on to our main funding priorities part. So this is really where the main application is, essentially, which is what you'll be, what the panelists and the assessors will be really digging into. So it's good to familiarize yourself with those three main priorities and then go through the questions. So outlining your organization's track record for music creator development. It's obviously key, it's very important. We want to know that we are funding organizations who are good at what they do. You need to be able to show some kind of track record of developing talent in any way. You don't have to go into a huge level of detail on this. It's more for context for the further questions, and this should probably really be the only question that's in the past tense. So you can talk about what you've previously done in this one. Everything else should be future facing, telling us what you want to do and why you want to do it. So you probably don't need to spend too much time on this one. Just give us some good examples of what you've previously done that are in relation to the project you want to do. And then we want you to outline the project that you want us to fund and why it needs funding support. And so again, we just want to know I guess the key thing here in this section of the application is detail and specifics. So giving us the detail of the work that you want us to fund. What is the music creator going to be doing? What exactly is the project going to look like? What are some of the outcomes, that kind of thing? And then the next question is, how will the project benefit the music creators involved in the project in the following ways? Creative, professional development. It can be one or the other. It doesn't have to be both. If it's a purely creative development project, that's fine. If it's a purely professional development project, that's fine. If you can get both in, that's probably going to be a little stronger, but it doesn't really matter as long as you're getting across how much of a benefit the composer is going to get from being involved in this project. So again, it's always artist first. And how is it going to help them level up in their career, and what kind of positive outcomes can you expect to see from this opportunity? And then not the final question, sorry, that's next. The next question is long-term legacy. So we don't generally fund one-off performances, but we will do if it's a significant performance. If it's going to have a huge impact for the composer, then it's worth applying. But generally here, we want to know what's the long-term outcomes for this project. Is there going to be multiple performances of a commission, say? How long is the artist going to be benefiting from being part of this project further than just, say, taking part in a festival performance? So here you can sort of elaborate on the ongoing outcomes for the artist. And then the final question is one that I think is where most applications trip up, actually, and it's partly because we're different in the way that you would approach the Arts Council, say, for an audience question, where it might be more about helping develop an audience in a particular region or area, or bringing a type of music to somewhere where it's not usually played. We are interested in how are you going to reach an audience for the benefit of the composer again? So how is the composer going to benefit from being part of this project and reaching and growing their audience through working with you? So talking about your marketing and promo plan, and again, and can be said across all of these questions is be very specific and detailed about the work that is being done. We don't need kind of things that you would put in a press release, lots of kind of vague descriptions of what you're looking to do. You can really bullet point the work that's happening. We just want the specifics of exactly what's going on, who's doing it, like the who, what, where, why, and how is what's important across these questions. And that's the main bulk of the application form. And the word count for most of these questions, I think all of them is 300. And I'd say that's, that's the max. It's not a target. The concise application is good. Just stick to the detail of what you're doing. That's what the panelists and the assessors want to know. And always linking it back to how much of a benefit it is for the composer. So here is the next section, which is the activity section. Going back to that eligibility quiz at the start, where the date says nothing can start before this date, this is that date there. So nothing should be earlier than the decision date here. So you can talk about what the name is, what's going to happen, and whether it's confirmed, provisional, or unconfirmed. The more confirmed, the stronger, I suppose. But some things you can't confirm. Some things you might have, say, if you're booking a tour for someone, you've reached out to venues, that would be provisional if you haven't confirmed them yet, but you're in negotiations. So you can just mark what stage everything is, and we keep it at 6 just to keep it concise. I know there'll be many projects that have so many more stages than this, and you can kind of group things together in the activity if you want to, but it's best just to keep it at quite a high level at this stage. And yeah, the most important thing is really that the activity just doesn't start before the decision date. Again, it's something that happens to a lot of applications in the round, and that would just be immediately ineligible. And then we come to the budget. So here we want to know if you're in receipt of any other funding, whether that's directly as part of this project that you're asking us to fund, or if your organization in general receives some support. You can just talk about it. It's not really something that is going to be held against an organization for having too much support, say. It's just, it gives the context of how you're operating and how this project sits within your wider work. And then you need to tick if you're asking us to cover some of your admin costs, as outlined again in the start of the application, just so we know. And there's some guidance there on what you can and can't apply for based on what it is that you're doing. And then we come to the main budget. There is a little video here of how to do the budget should you need any help, and there's some guidance notes to download as well. It's not too much of a tricky budget, but I know that budgets are not everybody's strong point. So again, if you are having issues or questions about it, it's better to get in touch and ask us than guess. So I would email info@prsfoundation.com if you do have any basic budget questions, and someone can get back to you. But you don't have to fill in every line. It's just whichever line is appropriate to you. So music creator fees, you can put in a little breakdown here in the description. Pro tip, there is no word count on these descriptions. You can just put in whatever you want. And also, the more info on the breakdown, the better. So if you're working with 6 music creators, say, rather than put in one bulk amount and say this is for 6 music creators, actually break it down into how much exactly is each person getting. You might have a situation where more established artists are getting a bit more than early career artists, say, and we would want to know what that breakdown looked like so the disparity isn't too big, just so that we can make some judgments about how the project is working for the benefit of the music creators. And that can work across all of these sections. Just if it's a lump sum, I mean, obviously, say you're doing an opera, you're going to have way more lines than here. So it's good to have the lump sum in one and then use this to break down exactly where all of that is going and the different people involved. But again, the who, what, where, why, and how is really important here. And then this section is just for you to click whether or not the grant you're asking us for is specifically covering this aspect or not. So you would say, yes, I want the PRS Foundation grant to cover music creator fees. That's very good for us. But then if you filled in all of this and then here's your marketing and promo, and this was the only one that you said, yes, I want all of the PRS Foundation grant to cover that, then obviously that would be ineligible as per the quiz at the start of the application, highlighting that we can't fund just marketing and PR. So it's important that you use this section to let us know exactly where the money's going. And then there's an in-kind expenditure as well. So any in-kind support you're getting, you can fill out and add in there. And then we have the income section. So your recording income, ticket sales, program sales. This can be prospective income. So say you are putting on a performance, you can put in here in the unconfirmed amount section how much you think you would make in tickets. Or if you've confirmed previous ticket sales, you can put it in there, or both. So it's important you can project forward as part of your budget to us. And then, as you've outlined at the start here, any kind of financial support you're receiving as a company in general. Down here, you can put in any other sort of trusts and foundation corporate donations that you are getting in relation to this specific project. And it's good to see other organizations are financing something as well. So it's not something that's going to be held against people. And then here is where you put the PRS Foundation grant amount. So however much you're asking for us from should go in this box here. And then again, there's the in-kind at the bottom, which must match the in-kind at the start for the expenditure. Once you've done that budget, this here should be zero. Obviously, the budget should balance. If it doesn't, you'll get a big red line. So if I put 200 in here, it tells you here that your budget does not balance. So keep an eye out for that, and then try and figure out what's going on, and just make sure that this here is always zero with our PRS Foundation grant amount here that you want us to give you. And so once you've done that, you've completed your budget. There is another section down here for access related costs. So if you need any access support to complete the project, say you need a PA, or you might need more money getting from A to B if you're going into a studio or something like that due to any access issues, then you can fill in this section and talk about what aspects you will need support with and how much that's going to cost. And this will be not seen by any assessors and will not come out of the full 10,000 you can apply for the project. It will come from a separate pot of money, and if you were successful in your application, then you'll have a conversation with PRS Foundation about how we go about doing that, and then we can help fund those costs separately, so that you're not having to take that out of the actual project costs. And so once you've done that, that is essentially the application done. We're then just onto our monitoring section. So this is only seen by us. Again, the assessors don't see this. It's not part of the decision-making process. It's just for us to understand better who we are and aren't supporting, so that we can find gaps and find ways of plugging those gaps. So for an organization, we want to know about the makeup of your organization. So your board members, your senior management, and your program management. So we like to know who's not just, although we're an Artists First funder, we're thinking about, when we fund your organization through this fund, we're thinking about, okay, we're funding this artist to do this program, really. But we also want to know what types of organizations we're funding. So it's really important to us to build a picture of what that looks like. So please do fill that out. In any of these questions, though, should you not want to, there is a prefer not to say option, or not specified, which you can choose instead. So there's lots of questions here, like, do you self-define as having a diverse leadership team? Yes or no? And then you can sort of elaborate on your answer. The age ranges of the musicians involved, ethnicity of the music creator, sexual orientation, gender, whether the music creator was the same sex they were assigned at birth, long-term health condition, and it goes on. There's just general kind of monitoring questions, mostly coming from a D&I data standard that lots of funders use, so that we can build a better picture of where gaps are in the wider funding landscape. But as I say, if you are uncomfortable with that, there's always a prefer not to say, but it really helps us if you do fill that out. And it is always anonymous and not linked to the decision-making process. So that is essentially the application as a whole. So I will stop sharing my screen and check to see if we have any questions. So if there are any questions, please pop them in the chat and I will do my best to answer them. But do bear in mind there is a very big delay to the YouTube stream and Zoom, which I am doing the webinar on. So bear with me. Okay, I think it's safe to say there are no questions, so we will leave it at that. And yeah, thank you very much for watching the webinar, and we'll be doing these more often for lots of different grant schemes. So I would suggest sign up to our newsletter, and yeah, best of luck with your applications.